Returning now to the Cass review, and one of the many concerns raised is that many of the young people treated by the NHS are same-sex orientated, and they're being steered towards drugs so they can align with their so-called gender identity. And many organisations who promote this questionable doctrine are those who were originally set up to promote gay rights. So here to discuss this, I'm joined by one of the co-founders of LGB Alliance, Bev Jackson. Welcome to the show. Very quickly, Bev, firstly, what was your reaction to the Cass review?
Well, obviously, I'm pleased that that it's now clear from such an eminent paediatrician and an eminent team of researchers that there is no sound evidence for this treatment that has been given to mostly teenage girls.
Yes.
I'm glad that that is out there, but pretty horrified that it's been treated as a political thing instead of a medical thing. This is a review of healthcare.
Yes.
And in what other area of healthcare would you find people treating it in this way? All these adult clinics refusing to give their evidence. We wanted long-term evidence. What is the long-term outcome? And
I mean, that is suggestive, isn't it, that 6 of the 7 adult clinics refused to hand over the data would suggest a degree of ideological capture. It cannot, you know, there's no other alternative at this point,
Well, if you think this is really good treatment, if you believe in the affirmative care model, then surely you would be very pleased to show, yes, this is brilliant, it works out very well. They didn't want to do it, and now I find even more shocking is a template is circulating for former patients encouraging them to say, we don't want our data to be used for research.
Yes.
So there is a profound reluctance to get the research out there, and then they say, oh, well, there isn't enough research. It's just ridiculous.
In terms of gay rights, the Cass review very specifically shows that 89% of the girls referred were same-sex attracted, either homosexual or bisexual, and 81% of the boys fall into that category. So this is overwhelmingly affecting kids who are likely to grow up gay.
Yeah. It's really, really disturbing. And everybody used to accept that. I mean, if you go back to the year, I think, around 2000, even mermaids were saying, of course, the overwhelming majority of kids presenting with I think they called it in those days it was gender identity disorder.
Yes.
Then they wanted to call it later gender dysphoria, and now they're calling it gender incongruence. They're trying to make it less and less medical, and yet insisting on more and more treatment. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, even mermaids were saying in the year 2000 that most of these kids would simply grow up lesbian or gay. And it was known. It was known everywhere. It was known in Holland also. And it's extraordinary that that now is being suppressed. And you're not seeing in the coverage, although there is that graph, which stops, unfortunately, at 2016. And that's because they didn't have any figures after that. Obviously, Cass wanted the figures after 2016. But, and I know that quite a few of the therapists who worked at the GIDS simply didn't ask about sexual orientation because they didn't think it was relevant.
But it is, of course, so relevant if this, you know, if this is a gay rights issue. And fundamentally, what's particularly disturbing is that the gender-affirming model and the very notion of a gender identity has been pushed by Stonewall, the foremost supposedly gay charity in the country, and other groups of its kind.
Yeah, and I think that what happened, if you replace the whole idea of, if you call homosexuality, say you change it from being same-sex sexual orientation, which that is what it is, that's what it was when I was setting up the Gay Liberation Front, and that still is what it is, that's sexual orientation. If you suddenly call it same gender orientation, so that theoretically, and not even theoretically, 2 men can call themselves women and then be a lesbian couple, you're making a mockery of what homosexuality is. And that removes, in the same way that it's removing women's rights by changing sex to gender, you're also removing the rights and the definition of homosexuality by changing sex to gender identity.
So given that Stonewall has been so complicit in this movement, is it now time, finally, for Stonewall to be driven out of public life?
Well, I represent a charity. I don't think it's for me publicly to talk about the work of another charity. Obviously, as you know, we set up LGB Alliance because we were unable to talk to Stonewall in those days. We didn't really want... We had no idea that this was a great thing to do at this stage of life, to set up a new organisation. We thought, no, we need to engage with Stonewall and so that they realise that this is having a really bad effect on young gays and lesbians. We will talk to them. And it was just a complete blank wall, no debate, and also there's no conflict between these rights. And this is so obviously not true. And it was only because we could not get through, we could not get a dialogue going, that we had to set up LGB Alliance. But I want to say, look, this is an age of misogyny. It's an extraordinary age of misogyny. We see in Scotland with the bill coming that people going to be protected by the new bill against misogyny will include men who identify as women. That is getting rid of women's rights. We see what's happening with the new rules for Title IX in America. Also will include men who identify as women. And the women who are impacted most by this are lesbians, who are impacted, as we say in our mission statement, doubly as women and as homosexuals. And the fact that we now know, and we know that young lesbians are being told, if they've got short hair or they fall for other girls, oh, maybe you're really a boy. And then some of them are susceptible to that, and they go and they take puberty blockers. And we now know all the harm that can be done by that, and we're pleased to see that that is now very, very clear from this report.
Thanks, Bev, for joining us. Really appreciate it.